ministry together, we wanted to wait until this moment to have our startup together. So I'm going to give the mic to Reverend Matthew to do our chalice lighting, and then I will take us through what we're going to do I'm going to try to get us out of here by 3 o'clock. Please do what you need to do, but my goal is to get us out by 3. And thank you to those online who are joining us and have been waiting ever so patiently for us to begin. We're glad you're here.
Yesterday, tomorrow, today. Yesterday, our distant ancestors gathered round a flame to share their stories and find comfort. Tomorrow, our descendants will gather around a flame, talking of a life we will never know. But today, it is we who gather here around this flame, seeking, believing, and being together.
Thank you. So here's what we've got on our agenda today. Now, I will say a couple housekeeping administrivia, as I like to call it. And that is, I can get really excited and nerd out on this churchy stuff. And so when I do, I can start to speak high and fast. And I will very intentionally try not to. But if I do go there, please raise your hand or do some emoji online, or someone just kind of signal to me that you need me to slow down. I'll do my best to self-regulate on that as well. So we've got a story in 3 parts as our service, 3 acts. There's a few things that I hope for when we do a ministerial startup. One is that the congregation gets to know the minister better than you have a chance to do at a 2-minute conversation going into coffee hour, or even an occasional meeting based on his Calendly, right? But there's ways that you get to know him. And even more so, that there are ways where he gets to know you as a congregation on the fast track, in ways that otherwise some of these things could take weeks or months or even years for the stories to be told. A couple things we're not doing. We're not uncovering all the dirt of the congregation and every single one of you here and making sure that's not what we're doing. We're telling stories and having conversation about what's important to this place, what makes you who you are, and what will help you together do ministry well together. So that's what we're doing. And the 3 things we're going to do to aid us in that process is we're going to start with a little bit of introductions and storytelling. And then we're going to focus on uncovering culture. There's an activity that we will do that will give us a chance to dig into some of the pieces of the stories that make up FUCSJ's being, like who you are. We are going to talk a little bit about boundaries and of shared ministry. I love doing this even when congregations are demonstrating excellent boundaries, because there are certain boundaries we will go over that are just expected of ministers. And then there are other boundaries that the line for those boundaries still ethical, but varies by circumstance, by minister. And so for you all to be able to say, hey, this is what we expect of a minister, and Matthew to be able to say, no, I don't answer calls at 3 a.m. if they're not an emergency. Right. So we'll do a little bit of that. And then we're going to talk about creating shared expectations. What do you expect from each other? What are you hoping for in moving into this settled ministry together? That is likely to take our time. If somehow we have more time, there's a couple other questions we can dive into, but most likely that is what we're going to have take time on. Questions, comments, well, not comments, questions. Anything you need to know before we begin? Those online, feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hand. We good? Yes. Why do I choose to disclose my pronouns? Yeah. So the question is, why do I choose to disclose my pronouns? I do it as a practice of normalizing the practice of sharing pronouns. So as a cisgender woman whose gender matches the sex I was identified at birth, it's a point of using my privilege to normalize a practice of saying pronouns and to make it clear to others if they would like to do the same, that is, I'm someone that would receive that. Yeah, you're very welcome. Okay, more stories about me to tell later. I was telling Reverend Matthew about how I learned to parallel park using from This American Life, an episode back when I was in seminary. Ask me about that not now. Because before you hear anything about me, I want to talk about the covenant I'm inviting us into. And can we hide the chat? Is anyone up there? I don't know if we can. Oh, there we go. I have the power. Okay, here's the covenant, that which we agree to be together around this afternoon that I'm inviting us into. The first one is empower the facilitator to facilitate. We have many skilled facilitators and many skilled UUs in this room. My role here is to help facilitate your conversations. Please entrust me with that and allow me to do my job so that you can do your job of participating and telling stories and being here. Be present as fully as possible. It's been a long morning and afternoon for some of us. Some of us are online, and that can make showing up fully more difficult. Some of us are like, I don't know what this thing is about. Why am I here? That's fine. Come as you are, but be here with your doubts and fears and feelings, as well as your convictions, joys, successes, your heart and spirit. Be here as much as possible and do what you need to do to make that happen. So if you need to move, if you need a break, please do it. Make space for silence and reflection. As a facilitator, that's one of the tools that I do use in a group, is that I leave space I invite you to do some reflection before sharing into larger groups. I leave space and I don't rush to fill it, because that is sacred canoodling time, right? Mulling time, thinking, discerning time. Embrace differences. We're speaking our own truths using I statements, and we're listening with open minds to others. And that today is not a day for fixing or correcting others. I won't caveat that. It's not a day for correcting and fixing others. We're sharing stories. We're telling the story of this place. If it's really vital to say that the thread count was 1,500 and not 500, like if that's like a key piece of data for something to make sense, then okay. If it's not, a thread count's a thread count, just as an example. All right, can I get some sort of affirmation? So online you can use a reaction or give me a thumbs up if you're on camera and here. Thumbs up, wave, pick your nose, I don't know, just show me that you're with me on this covenant. You with me? Okay, awesome, thank you. Okay, so what we're gonna move into is related to your service this morning. Everything we do today is focused on and dedicated to the mission of this place, of making love visible. And we're going to use a lot of storytelling. So what I'm going to invite you to do is to take a couple of minutes to pair up. If you need a trio, that's fine, but pair up, and I want you to share a story of a memorable, enjoyable, or profound experience you've had in this congregation. Everything I do, by the way, is by invitation, so if you're like, peace out, I don't want to talk to anyone, take your option. But for those who are willing to tell some stories with each other, I'm going to invite those in the room to kind of clump up in twos and threes and do that. And those online, in just a moment, I'm going to open up some breakout rooms and invite you into those rooms as well. So your question for each other, or your prompt for each other, describe one memorable, enjoyable, or profound experience you've had in this congregation. You've got 4 minutes, so about 2 minutes each, unless you have more than 2 people. Good? All right, happy storytelling. People online, give me 1 moment, I'll open your rooms. Take 1 more minute. 1 more minute. All right. Welcome back, online folks. I will welcome back those in the room. A lot of good energy in the room, I'm hearing. I'm going to invite us to do a very, very quick processing of it. And what I'm going to invite you to do is just to pay attention to your body and your mind or your heart. We're not going to do a big meditation, but I just want you to notice, how are you feeling after that? I'll invite those online. You're welcome to, I'm looking down there. You're not there. You're there. I'll invite you to put in the chat any words of just, what was it like? How did you feel? One word, two at the most. And I'll take a few from the room that I will repeat back into the mic. We'll have times when I'll pass the mic, but for this one, just a word. How does it feel after sharing that? Energized. Better. We have happy from online. I heard one over here I missed. Graced. Comfortable. Connected. We have curious. Anyone else want to share out? Another connected. Enlightened. Did you have one? Eager to hear more. It's all right. I'm giving it to you. Infinity loop. Love it. Hope. Safe. Understood. We have wistful. Bewildered. Now, don't these words make you want to now go talk to the people and be like, what story did you hear? We're not doing that. You got to ask the person who told the story, but absolutely. Well, thank you. What I love about starting with that is, first of all, you all get to have a time to talk. It's not just me talking, but you get to start to think about what's important about this place. What makes this place meaningful? So meaningful that you will spend a Sunday afternoon here with me. And so we can tell that there's a lot here, right? This place means something. This place has made a difference in lives. This place has made a difference in many of your lives. And you have a long history that we're entering into another part of that stream, that river of ministry going forward as you continue on with Reverend Matthew. And any place that has a long history has a long history. There are things that this is my second time into your beautiful space, that I know about you as your primary contact, stories that have been told to me to help me get to know the congregation. And there are things that I don't know. Did I take someone's seat at worship this morning? Sorry if that was yours. Right? So we're going to do some storytelling through an exercise that my team calls an anthropological expedition. So let me pull up the slides for that as I explain a little bit more about it. So what we're going to do is that we're going to do some more storytelling, and we're going to do it in some groups and then come back to the larger group. But each group has a very specific set of stories that you will be telling. Now, again, we're going back. We're not now. Unlike the picture, we're not looking for skeletons in the closet. We're looking for the things that are helpful to name and to tell the stories of. Some of them are going to be really celebratory. Some are going to be just kind of what it is. Some might be a little tender, and that's okay, because we're going to tell them and bring them into this space with love and grace, and for the benefit of us getting to know each other better. So I'm going to be dividing you into groups. Online, you're going to go into one breakout room together. In the room, I'm going to divide you into 4 groups. Your groups will be 14, 15-ish people. So if you decide you want to separate into 2 smaller groups and each group do it separately, that's okay. But let me tell you what you're doing so you can make that decision. So this exercise assumes that a makeup of a community has many different levels to it, many different layers of story, many different things that make us up. And so you will be divided into 4 groups, looking at different parts of what makes up the history and the story of who you are. Ooh, that didn't translate well to the wall, did it? Sorry. Keepers of the rules. If you are in the keepers of the rules, your job is to name the rules that govern this place. Now, I don't mean you're going to go search out the bylaws. I mean the rules like no food in the sanctuary. Right? I've heard that one 3 times, and I've been here for 3 hours. So what are the rules that are spoken or unspoken that keep this place going? Particularly thinking of it in terms of what are the rules the minister needs to know, but also what do you all need to know coming into the community? What might a visitor not know coming into the community? Okay. The tellers of the stories. Your job is to identify a good number of stories that are still live in this place, right? The story of the renovation you just went through, right? That's probably pretty live. Is it a story that beyond Rom and the board, is that live? That's up to you to decide. But do you have a story of, well, this minister used to do this, or that time when we all gathered together, or the time when our RV rooms were really full, or the time when we were in desperate despair and we all came together to support each other? What are the things that are still alive in this community? The guardians of the traditions. You're picking up what these things are about. You're probably intuiting what I'm about to say. So the guardians of the traditions, you're going to identify what traditions are important to this place. Now, they can be small traditions, like lighting the chalice at the beginning of worship. They can be bigger traditions, like doing a Christmas pageant or the no rehearsal pageant, or whatever came before that, or a Dia de los Muertos service, or whatever the traditions are. What are the things you do over again that are meaningful to this community? Particularly the ones where if Matthew skips it, it'll be like, hey, we had this thing that you missed, right? Things that you would miss if they went away. Okay, and finally, the speakers of the truth. Your job is to lovingly come up with what are the things that need to be said that maybe don't always get said. And again, not directing it at people. We're not doing any of that. What we're doing is just saying, here's something that is maybe difficult for us to say that needs to be said. So for instance, in another one of my congregation, it's nothing will ever be right because we compare our minister to the minister we had back in the 80s. Right? I'm not naming your truth. That's going to be your job. But those are the sorts of truths that we're talking about. Okay, before I break you up, I'm going to pause for questions. Folks online, you are welcome to raise your hand or put in the chat if you have questions about what any of those groups are supposed to do. If it is easy to get, yes. Thank you. Reverend Matthew's getting us some newsprint for your groups and markers. Clear as mud what I'm asking you to do. Yes, sir. How do we determine speaking order within the group? So that you as a group can determine the process that you want to use. If you need some help facilitating that, call me over and I'll help you decide how you'll work internally in the group. Yes. Oh, that's a nice question. The output, you are going to create, online you can just capture it however you want, put it and be able to put it in the chat, or if there's a Google Doc or something you want to show, we'll be able to do that, I think. We'll make it work. Here, each group is going to get some newsprint, and you're going to share out, you have some conversation first, you don't need your brainstorm to come back, here's everything we said, but distill out what the most important pieces are to bring back to this community. And you're going to put it up on newsprint, and each group is going to get a chance to share out. The hope, again, the idea, the whole purpose of this is for you all to be able to share the things that are important to the DNA, to the makeup of this place. Good question. Other questions? Online, you will be given, okay, in person, don't listen. Online, you all get the privilege, you get the power to choose which of the 4 you want to do. So you get to choose any of the 4, but only do one of them. In person, I'm going to assign your group a type. Yes?
What if from the very beginning, some of us don't feel safe speaking our truth? What do you do then? How do you overcome that? How can you help people overcome maybe being shy or not feeling safe to share something?
So the question was, what if people don't feel safe sharing their truth? And I'm going to leave that, I'm not going to leave it to the individual because it's our collective responsibility to create spaces where people can share. So remembering our covenant and remembering that when you're reporting out, we're not reporting out individual stories. Melissa said, this is Melissa's experience, right? We're not doing that. And then a reminder that we do all of this by invitation. So if there are things that this isn't the space where you're comfortable sharing them, that's okay. Share to the point where you are comfortable sharing. And if there are things beyond that, then we can find individual time with Reverend Matthew, or you can talk to me, or we can find times for those stories to be told in a way that feels safer to you. Does that work? Okay. All right, any other administrivia questions? You know what you're going to do? Okay. Online folks, I'm going to put you in your breakout room. I'm going to open your breakout room. You get to choose which you want. All right, that room is open. All right. So we need about 15 people. 2, 4, 6, 8. I need about 7 people who would be willing to join this section of the room. Excellent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're welcome to, or you can stay here because you're already a smaller group. 6 and 7. Awesome. Okay. Then we're going to do, so let's see, that puts 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. You all are one group. Ooh, I think I did that wrong. Yeah, come on back. Transparent facilitation here. Okay. We need 4 groups, not 3. Okay. You are group 1. You are the keeper of the rules. Let's see here. Let's do from here over there. You're now a little bit smaller group. That's okay. You are going to be the guardians of the traditions. Okay? This group here, unless some of you want to defect to that group, it's totally fine. This group is going to be the tellers of the stories, okay? Which then, if you've been playing along at home, you know that you all are the speakers of the truth, okay? So I'm going to give you a good 15 minutes I'll check in with you at 15 minutes. So feel free to move out of this space if you would like to use the fellowship hall or other places you need to be. But you've got 15 minutes. Call me over with questions.
No, our mics are, the mics are off.
Okay, thank you. All right, how are we doing now? Can you hear me online now? Excellent. Can you hear me in the room? Excellent. Okay, we're going to send some good energy to the owl and technology to make it work for us. Because we're going to report out from the groups. Now, again, there will be one of those four that we've got two groups reporting out on, because the online group got to choose and you all had all the four as well. So we'll hear something twice. We may also hear overlap, right? Because what's a tradition versus what's a story versus what's a rule versus what's a truth, right? And that's okay. That is okay. So what I'll do is I'll invite each group to take the mic, and either someone from the group can hold up your sheet, or I can Vanna White for you and hold up your sheet. Folks online, do you want to unmute and share out, or would you like me to? Yes, I'm seeing a yes. Okay, perfect. We'll have you unmute and share out. I know you put some stuff in the chat. So you're going to share out what it is that you came up with. And we'll do some processing of it and what did you hear and all of that once we're done. But I want to hear what you had to say. Folks online, are you cool if I ask you to go first? Okay. Go ahead and talk to us, people
Sure.
online.
I have the list. Should I read it or does someone else?
I would love for you to read it, Kelsey. I would like to just say maybe a couple things as an introduction. That we did the speakers of the guardians of the traditions, and we have many things we listed. We didn't so much talk about which ones were most important to us, but we have a lot of things that we think are traditions. So go ahead, Kelsey.
Yeah, no, I'll add to that some of these are still happening and some of them are not, and we
Yep.
didn't sort that. So rituals like the maypole, blessing of the animals, and Dia de los Muertos, the Easter Bunny and Santa. Movement in the sanctuary, where we would dance in the chairs, or sometimes we would come and dance in the labyrinth. Holding hands or connecting somehow during the benediction. Time after the service to walk the labyrinth. Lunch after the service as a fairly regular thing, sometimes a fundraiser or sometimes a potluck like we had today. Classes for grown-ups. Opening our sanctuary for forums such as candidate forums through the League of Women Voters. And similarly, maintaining our church as partly as a community gathering place. So things like 12-step meetings and there was something else. Oh, the English country dances, stuff like that to continue to make our facility available to the community. Hugs as greetings in front of the church before the service. The children's story and singing them out. Service leaders greet people as people are leaving the sanctuary going into the social hall. We used to have a mobile bookstore in Hattie Porter Hall where we would sell books. Presenting contrasting viewpoints as part of the service. Connecting with other languages, in particular singing Spanish hymns, but also other elements of the service that might be in a language other than English. Packed participation, marches and protests as a group. The minister publicly involved in justice work as a representative in the community. Having visiting worship leaders from other faiths as part of our rotating speakers. And doing neighboring faiths as part of the 4th and 5th grade curriculum. Hosting YRUU events for youth. Outside social justice connections and interfaith connections. I think they're already, okay. Strong pastoral care from the minister as well as the pastoral care team. We missed the gossip and community news column in the newsletter. And the produce and farmers market fundraiser in Hattie Porter Hall after the service. Other important traditions, the partner church program, owls and coming of age with other congregations, summer camp trips and other summer activities for kids, and the annual church camp out. And we think there used to be an annual retreat at church or at a retreat center that it might be fun to bring back. So I'll say to the group, did I miss anything? Okay, thank you. That was our report.
I don't hear Melissa. Is she speaking?
We can't hear Melissa.
Am I on? Oh, there we go.
Yes,
Okay, thank
there
you
we
so
go.
much, online folks. Really appreciate it. And I'm going to turn it over to the other keeper of the tradition so we can keep going on the same thread that we have been on. So I see movement here, which makes me think you're the keepers of tradition, guardians of tradition. All right. You are a speaker?
Sure. Okay, this is great because there were some things the same and some things we didn't think of. Under holidays, Day of the Dead, Flower Communion, Homecoming, Diwali, Candlelight Service, decorations, Santa, Solstice, Coming Out Day, and Thanksgiving gathering, we were remembering as a gathering here for people, like a Friendsgiving here. Under youth, Coming of Age, OWL, the RE grades going to visit other faiths, and YRUUP and cons. That's okay. Under community, Pride Parade, Pact, renting out the building, weddings, memorials, AA, whatever events, and the Labyrinth being open. Under worship, chalice lighting. We used to always have kids light the chalice back when we had more kids. Joys and Sorrows, the kids' story, the stampede, when we used to have the teenagers up there and they would stampede down for the story, the song to lead them out, lay-led services, sidewalk welcome, when the minister was out on the sidewalk to welcome people, the affirmation, the land acknowledgement, choir, guitars allowed, pianist, and hymnal, songs from the hymnal. Activities, camp out, youth trips, the retreat in Aptos, I remember so fondly, editorial comment. Memorial Day picnic, the auction, services are prayer day when we do little jobs around the church, Julian Street Inn, small groups, men's group, women's alliance, and writing group, circle of support, pastoral associates, social justice activities, circle suppers, the neighborhood network, and lunch. People remember a lunch where we sat by our birthday month. And and I think this is still happening. Marnie having a Zoom on Tuesdays and Thursdays or something where people can just show up and services or prayer. And we did something, one of the first times we gathered after COVID was names were in a basket. We picked a name and then we connected with that person and, just had some connection. The partner church, we go visit them, they visit us. There's a tea to raise funds, an annual tea to raise funds for the partner church in Romania.
Let's give a hand for both of our guardians of the traditions groups. All right, so we have traditions. Let's have some stories. Y'all were stories. Okay. You are welcome to hold, by all means. I do not need to be Vanna. Can be. It's part of the requirement of the job. For those who can't hear me, I'm just making not funny jokes.
So yeah, there's some overlap there too. And there's the camera. Hi, Zoom people. So it was the article in 1987 where it was about Lindy as the first called Unitarian minister who was out lesbian. And of course, the fire of 1995, and then the starting up of 3rd Street, and a huge recovery effort that we all, painted and stuff afterwards. Spanish-speaking ministry. We're not sure when it started, but we think it ended in 2008, and then there was alabanzas along with that. Interesting mix of social activity, English and Spanish speakers. We've always had a strong interfaith presence. We had pulpit exchanges. We have a strong social justice presence. We had gay weddings on this one day during this window in 2008. Our mantra has been love is the doctrine throughout all this. Recently, we had a very successful capital campaign. I wrote that. After the elections of 2016, we opened the church as a sanctuary and support, and we did that after the election in 2024. Mistakes and Miracles, the book by our former minister, Reverend Lindy Ramsden, involved us as one of the churches that was investigated or talked about in that book. And Reverend Nancy Palmer Jones, Reverend Nancy Palmer Jones wrote that with her collaborator. And in our search for multiculturalism and anti-racism work that we did during that time, and ongoing, I believe, we have always offered opportunities for personal growth. And if you can go to the next page, thank you. In our past, we've had strong youth group and strong leadership that has gone on into YRUU leadership. And then we began a partner church collaboration in 1995 in Transylvania, in Romania, which is still ongoing. That's strong. We've had a strong small group ministry, began as Evensong. We've had, the camp out has been going for many, many years. We've had plays to raise money and involve our congregants. And then after the pandemic, we did a huge switcheroo to Zoom, which we had not been doing before, and broadcasting it out into the community.
Thank you, story people. Can we give them a nice little round of applause? Excellent. All right, we're going to do rules and then truths. So, keepers of the rules. Do you need me to hold it, or does someone else want to hold? All right, who did you decide to speak? So they actually see you through the, well, actually, yeah, but they're going to be able to click that. You get some mic, you do?
All right. So we came up with, in this tricky category, we came up with some things, and I'll read them for you. Our preference to state names when addressing others. So whether this be just as we're speaking amongst one another, or when we're coming up to talk about joys and sorrows. Another rule or expectation is no food in the sanctuary. In the past, there was a rule around refrain from refrain from giving people, when people ask, refrain from giving out money. And I think we have a way around that now. The order of service lists upcoming events, so that was kind of a preference to make sure that the order of service lists upcoming events. The last one in the building should check all the doors to make sure everything stays locked. Don't make too many waves, kind of an unspoken rule. Please don't leave anything on the organ, although that's not necessarily happening. Conflating liberal religion with more leftist political politics, something that tends to happen here. I can't read that. I'm good, but not that good. As people, we are civil with one another. How communication happens here at this church is mixed. like humans, sometimes it's direct and sometimes it's triangulated, meaning gossip happens. We're all adults. And that's just how it happens. We're not so super special. Every rule is a response to some problem. And to be careful with fire is a big rule around here. And uncertainty of how to praise in a service. We used to, at one point, at least in my time here, we would just wiggle our fingers. And then all of a sudden we started clapping. And so I think something that perhaps needs to be discussed. And then an expectation of quiet reverence. And that's as far as we got.
Thank you, keeper of the rules. All right, my truth tellers.
Okay, so this says, what are the things that need to be said that often aren't? So I'm going to read the things that were said in our group. Would like the minister to be out front greeting people with a hug. Financially, this church is mostly supported by a small number of congregants. Lots of work in the church is borne by a small group. Reluctance to get involved, reliance on email, we need to talk face-to-face better. We have conflicts. People have leftover conflicts. We say we tolerate neurodiversity, but some people who are not tolerated. We have a nature group, but we don't recycle. I don't think politics belongs in the church. Seems to be prejudiced against people elected to our government. Want to see them as part of God. Is our love universal? We are not political enough. We need to have a place to rage against the machine. Focus rage on values. We don't have enough young people, and we used to have them. We need young people to sort out what to do. We need young people to help us sort out what to do to get them. What do the cons give, the youth cons give that First Unitarian does not? How can we find out? Excitement about Rev Matthew's involvement in music. We appreciate music. What are the limits to expression? Is it okay to sing out, move, dance? What is the place of exuberance? And we need to express, I think this means we need to express, we need a place to express opinion about service.
Thank you, keepers of the rules. So my initial y'all are a pretty cool group of people. Like, you do things and you care for each other and you stick with it even when it's hard. That's pretty cool. I'm going to invite all to think about the question, what did you hear about this church when listening to each other? What did you hear about this church? This is how we're going to do it. I'm going to set out, for those who are in the room, I'm going to set out the papers kind of around the labyrinth a bit. And we're going to take a 5-minute break in which I invite you, if you would like, to do what's called a gallery walk, where you walk around and you kind of look at the things because we heard them once. Often I need to see it too. Those online, I'm going to invite you to have a 5-minute break and pull in what you can. I'll see what I can do about some photos for you. And then we're going to start promptly at 2:30 back here, where I'm going to give a few minutes for you and the congregation to reflect, what did you hear about yourselves? And then we're going to put Reverend Matthew on the spot to do the same. What did you learn or hear about this congregation? Then we'll start on some other things, okay? So we'll put them out, 5 minutes, do what you need to do. I'm starting promptly at 2:30 so we can get in everything we need to get in. Questions about what I'm asking you to do? If all you got out of that is take a break, I'm starting at 2:30. Okay.
Okay, guys, 5 minutes.
All right. Oh, hello, it is 2:32. I'm very prompt. I will welcome you back. Come on back. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm trying to get, oh, here we go. Getting our online folks in view. Here we go. Okay, so I'm so delighted to see those of you who are in the room who were able to do some pondering. It looks like maybe some editing, which was not the ask, but that's okay. And thank you to those online for sticking with me. I got the slides ready to send you the pictures right as we were coming back. So I'll make the slides available with the pictures on it for folks. But first, for the next few minutes, I would love to hear, what did you all hear about this place? I'll pass the mic. Those online, feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hand. I'll read from the chat, or you can unmute. And anyone want to start us off? What did you hear about this place? What stuck out to you?
It's a busy place. We have a lot going on.
Well, I just found myself nodding and remembering and thinking, oh, yeah.
As my first day here, I hear such a rich history. There was a little bit of sadness that I wasn't here for some of it, but a hopefulness of what is ahead.
Can we give a special round of applause? We've got a couple visitors that are like hanging out here. Welcome. Thank you for hanging out here. All right, I started to come here. Who had their hand up over here?
I heard about neighborhood network, and Connie had to tell me what it was.
All right, I saw someone here, and then I'll come over this way. Is that you?
This is Marnie. I saw a lot of things that people would like to return to have back.
All right, go 1, 2, 3, then I'm checking online.
I saw a lot, it was a very interesting encyclopedic list. I was saying, we had a bit of a argument. Maybe I was the only one saying I thought we should prioritize on traditions, what is more important, what isn't, because I don't know that we actually, I don't know. Okay, I think we tend to want everything, but it's hard to get people to step up and do them all.
Yeah, go ahead and pass it.
Yeah, I don't think I saw anything I didn't know before, but I saw a number of things I had forgotten. And I agree with Madeline that, it doesn't mean we need to continue all of these things. We need to pick and choose.
It was a reminder to me of why I raised my son in this church, with all the wonderful things that happen, and I hope we can get the bandwidth to return to that.
I'm going to go check online, and as I do that, one of the things that can happen when we do an exercise like this is we can start to think of it as our to-do list for the next year or two. Just, that is not what we've just come up with. Part of your ministry is going to be discerning, what of this needs returning? What of this can we have as a happy memory or a sad memory? Or so part of that will be the work. From online, we are a historically active church. And I heard some conflicts around unwritten rules about taking political positions. Yeah. We had, not competing is a little strong, but we had things that were different from each other. Anything else you all want to name?
Well, we came here having gone to about 5 other Unitarian churches. So we basically went to every Unitarian church here in the Bay Area, and it ended up we picked this one, not for the building so much, but the attention to music, good music. Reverend Nancy was, not Nancy, but anyway, so I want to mention music because I think that's an important part of our tradition.
All right, I'm going to take one more, and then I'm going to offer the mic to Reverend Matthew.
Well, one thing that we really didn't talk about was all the kind of wonderful new changes that have happened with Reverend Matthew. And I was thinking we would get a chance to do that, but maybe another time.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Check to make sure online we've got them.
I mean, I was just trying to take notes on my iPad as I went and could not keep up. So there's a lot of things. I think I heard the piece about maybe some conflicting opinions about politics' role in the congregation and where it fits and do we do too much or not enough. I heard a lot about activities, many of which are still going on, some of which haven't happened in a while, some of which I think are fondly remembered and people would love to have back. And so I know, reading between the lines, some lamentation over what used to be. One thing that I didn't hear that I would say is a truth for some people that I have picked up in conversations is that the best time for this church was when Reverend Lindy was our minister. It's in the air. And it's interesting to think about because, to a certain extent, that was also, obviously much of that was Reverend Lindy, and that was also a boom time for our Unitarian Universalist churches. The 80s, early or mid 80s, through the early 2000s was a period where we grew, and then we stopped as a denomination and started slowly declining in 2020 or in 2002, 2003. Anyway, just naming that as a reality, which isn't a slight on Lindy at all, but some questions about how do we relate to each other, or how do we talk to each other, how do we handle conflict, what sort of behavior is appropriate, which sort of behavior is allowed or maybe just like borderline, and what is too far. And I think we have different opinions about that, and what does that mean in terms of inclusivity. So I feel a push and a pull between wanting to be welcoming and inclusive and wanting to have a space that feels comfortable and or safe, which aren't always the same things. And there's probably more, but yeah, that's. And thank you. Thank you for sharing. It was illuminating. So, yeah.
Invite you to wiggle or take a breath or whatever your body needs right now. I will add my gratitude for participating in that. I do hope that it sparks more storytelling of things that came up, or things that you're like, oh wait, what was that? I heard them like, oh yeah, I remember that. Or for those who are newer, of like, what was that? But also that it opens the door to exactly what you were talking about, of saying, and we're still creating what it means to be church together, right? We're trying new things, like this morning, the way you sung out the children, right? Your ability, your willingness to try something new. I don't know if that was brand new today. Is that brand new today? 3 weeks, okay, it's fairly new, right? In tradition land, that's brand new, right? To become who you are now and who you need to be now. So thank you for that as well. We have about 20 minutes until that 3 o'clock hour. So I'm going to use that 20 minutes to talk about boundaries and expectations and do one really quick little exercise. For those who can stay past 3, there'll be an invitation to take that little exercise that I kind of finish us with about now, for about 10 more minutes of conversation. So I will continue facilitating until about 3:10, 3:15. Those who need to leave at 3, who are like, you said 3, I'm leaving at 3, please feel free. All right. Okay. So a quick story as I bring up my slides. So some of you that I have known since I began this work. I started doing this work. I've been in ministry for 20 years. I think I just hit my 20-year anniversary of ordination. And so I've been doing that for a long time, but I've been in this role for 4.5 years. And San Jose, you have been one of my congregations that entire time. So many of you, a few of you here and there have known me. I've known Ram, best buds, for a few years now. So I say that is because many of you who have been on a Zoom with me, she was 3, she is now 7. Can't believe that. That's not, the story is about her, but the age is just a mom comment. So there's a number of things that are really important to us as we try to figure out this parenting thing, right? Any of you who have parented or are parents, like, you get that you're always, you have a great idea of what parenting is going to look like until you have kids. And then it's like, oh, we're going to build this plane as we fly it. But there are some values, there's some things that we hold steady in terms of what's important to us, my wife and I. And one of those things is teaching our daughter about consent and boundaries. And so throughout her life, ever since she was like 2 years old, we started talking about consent and boundaries. For the sake of this story, it's the boundaries piece I'm going to hone in on, because she has learned through these years, these 7 years, what a boundary is, and her understanding of it has continued to grow to the point where she is now 7 and smart as a whip and just an amazing kid who also knows how to say the things that will make mommy and mama take a step. And so it's not uncommon. I'm thinking of a situation that happened yesterday. It's not uncommon for me to start to ask her to do something or tell her to do something or be like, this is what we're doing. And she's like, I'm setting a boundary. Yes, you are, my dear. And the thing about boundaries is that you have to have both the authority and the power to set that boundary, and people have to respect that boundary for it to, and that's a relational thing, right? The giving and taking of that. And so for her, the learning about boundaries is about, okay, when do I need to override as your mom because of safety or health or whatever? And when do I, as myself, be like, it's more important that she learns boundaries than I get her to do whatever it is I just told her to do, right? Boundaries are something that we learn. Boundaries are something that we do in relationship with one another. And particularly in ministry, boundaries are about trust. And so the ministerial relationship itself is all about trust, right? Building trust between you, inheriting trust or distrust, building on trust, breaking trust. Brene Brown, for those who are not familiar with her, she has a whole lot of research and literature and TED Talks about trust, and I recommend that. But one of the things that she says about trust is that trust is choosing to make something important to you vulnerable to the actions of someone else. Choosing to make something important to you vulnerable to the actions of someone else. Choosing to make your church and this community that's important to you vulnerable to the actions of your minister, who is entrusted with keeping that trust and helping you build that community, for instance. Now, boundaries, this is one of the metaphors my colleague Sarah likes to use, and I like it as well, is we can think about boundaries as the lines on the road that help us safely navigate this sacred trust, right? We can move in, we can change lanes without signaling, right? We can get out of our lane, but the idea is that we have things that either we've professionally agreed to do or not do, we've covenanted together to do or not do, to be a way of being together. And by having those, even for those of us who are like, don't put a rule on me, those boundaries are what helps us safeguard the way we move through community and safeguard that sacred trust. So I'm going to take a couple minutes to talk about ministerial boundaries. In general, we want every congregation and every person in a UU church to know that some of this stuff about boundaries. And then I'm going to ask Reverend Matthew to do some reflection or question or whatever. You get the mic to talk about boundaries that are important to him or that he's heard from you. So, your minister is a partner with you in ministry and has a professional obligation and a professional code of conduct to hold that role and hold this community in sacred trust. And there are certain things they can and that are expected and that they covenant to do and not do, right? So some of the things that you can expect, you should be able to expect, and I do expect and have full faith in from my experience, but what things you can expect from your minister. That your minister is not going to misappropriate the money or the property. That your minister is not going to participate or create an environment where sexual harassment is allowed or happens. That your minister will not partake in sexual behavior with those they serve or with those they supervise. My wife is a therapist, and she always talks about the brochure. I know, I'm guessing there's got to be therapists and psychologists in this room, right? That part of their boundaries training is they have a brochure that says, therapy does not include sex. Neither does ministry. Okay. Those are big things that unfortunately a lot of our congregations have experienced from their ministers in the past. Healings that has to happen, but that you should be able to explain, that you should be able to expect. Other things that you should be able to expect from your minister, and this is not exhaustive, I can get you the code of ethics that Matthew is responsible to uphold. Plagiarism, racist or oppressive behavior, and relating to colleagues and staff in a manner that creates a hostile environment. Right? Those are biggies. Those are the things that if you are experiencing that, if you feel like you're experiencing that, then you are welcome to reach out. And you can reach out to me directly. I have contacts at the UUA. Always direct communication is great, but just know that those are things that we take very, very seriously. Then there are the things in ministry where it's like, okay, these are the do not pass go ones. These are the, it's a little squishy, but they're probably not a good idea, right? So things like trying to do everything and please everyone. That is a recipe for burnout and failure of a ministry, right? So just know your minister's not here to please everyone and do everything, right? Overworking. Not a great idea, right? And holding boundaries about what is overworking, what are those expectations of work. Those are important because without that, overworking does a couple of things. One, it burns out your minister and causes your minister harm to their health, to their well-being. And two, it harms the system. Because if your minister is overworking, then the system adjusts and undercompensates, overcompensates, right? And so the well-being of this place depends on having good ministerial boundaries over what is theirs to do and what is lay ministry to do and what doesn't need to be done. Friendship or business partnerships with congregants. I came into a ministry a number of years ago where the person I was coming after as a part of this wider system was like BFFs, go over to the house, do all the things with all the people in the family ministry. I came in and I'm like, not doing that because I'm here to serve you. And my relationship with you is a professional one, which I'm going to care about you. I'm going to do things to care for you. And there is some pushback, right? And so paying attention to what are the expectations that you all have, that this system has in terms of what friendliness or connection looks like. And understanding that if Reverend Matthew says, no, I can't come to your bake sale. I don't know, you can set those boundaries, right? That it's not because he doesn't care about you, but it's part of this boundary setting piece. Perpetually avoiding conflicts. Heard some of that come up a little bit. And then engaging with people from their former congregation without a covenantal agreement with the current minister. And that will mainly be something that Matthew will handle, but you should know that too, because that also applies to ministers that you've had in the past as well, right? For a minister to be connected, be in relationship with, or be connected to with folks in the congregation or a part of things that the congregation is a part of, there is a professional expectation that they have a covenant with the current minister, right? Doesn't mean they can't do that stuff, but as a caring act for you as a community and a professional courtesy to the minister, the idea is Matthew's not going to be surprised when it's like, hey, Reverend Schmedlap was just here and told us that we should do OWL today, so I think we should do OWL, right? It's that sort of thing we want to avoid. Okay, that's my Debbie Downer part. These are the things that shouldn't happen. But boundaries can also be really positive, right? And they are here to help protect the community. And there are things where different ministers have different boundaries around things that are perfectly ethical, but just aligns with them. So for instance, as a parent of a small child, there were times when I would or would not be available, right? Or as a UU employee, there are ways that I accept communication and ways that I don't, right? So I'm gonna give Reverend Matthew the mic to do whatever he wants within boundaries, talking to us about boundaries. What's important to you, Matthew?
Not burning out is important to me. I feel like I'm generally pretty good at just like, okay, I need to take time for myself. I have that tendency to go, oh, I want to do all of the things, and then we'll just be pulled back. So I'm pretty good at maintaining that in myself. I understand, I have heard that Reverend Nancy would give 60 to 80-hour weeks pretty regularly. I am not that minister. I will not be that minister. I don't have that capacity because of, being, I don't know, for my own sanity, but also for, you know, my wife, who already does more than, you know, many spouses, just being the spouse of a minister. Physical boundaries. So some of this I've talked to you about. Like, occasionally I will offer, or I will ask, would you like a hug? Particularly if you've shared something, you know, challenging, you know, something hard is going on in your life. But I know some people like to have, as was mentioned, hugs outside in front of the church. I'm happy with that. I am not going to offer you a hug. I'm not gonna, like, if you would like a hug, please initiate it. If I give a hug to someone else and not to you, it's because they indicated that they wanted a hug and you didn't, and not because I don't want to give you a hug. That hasn't been an issue so far for me in ministry, which I think is, being male-bodied is less of an issue. My day off is Monday. I am not going to work that day, barring a really big emergency. We also have an amazing pastoral associates team. I don't know, some of you don't realize how amazing they are, but they are, that can offer support, and I'm grateful for that. Fridays are my writing day, although I will sometimes take meetings and do things on my own, but generally that's a day that I get to decide whether I'm going to do something on a Friday that's outside of writing. I'm just going back to the friendships. You know, a minister is not, I can't be your friend, because I'm never going to turn to you with like, oh, this is what's going on in, you know, with my family, with my kid, with my, you know, you can come to that with me, but I'm not going to do that with you. And so that's the difference. That's the kind of boundary that we have. That doesn't mean that I can't be friendly. And hopefully I am friendly. I just had an invitation today, and that doesn't mean, you know, I just had an invitation today to go for a hike, which is great. But I'm not going to go for a hike every week or every month with that person. But like a one-time thing is, you know, appropriate. I guess this is not just me, but generally, you know, as a minister, I'm not a trained therapist. I have some therapy adjacent skills, and so can kind of do, you know, counseling and spiritual direction. I have some training, but generally, you know, I don't work with someone more than 3 times. Like, I can meet with someone about something 3 times and then have to refer, because that's not what I do. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to share. Oh yeah, for better and for worse, the thing about, like, you can't call me at 3 o'clock in the morning unless it's an emergency. I actually put my phone on airplane mode at night, so you can call me, but it'll just go to voicemail. I'm like, should I feel bad that someone won't be able to reach me at 3 a.m., but it hasn't come up in 8 years of ministry so far. Yeah, I have a question. Yes, you can email me on a Monday or a Friday, and you can email me whenever, although know that it might not get responded to until slightly longer than if you emailed me on a day that I was working. Yeah, it's not really a boundary. I don't know. We didn't really talk. We talked yesterday. We had a leadership meeting about expectations, and I think one expectation is, so I have way too many things to do as a minister. Some that you ask me to do, some things that I want to do, and I can't do it all, even if I might want to. And these days, so much of ministry happens via email. And as many of you have experienced, email can be totally overwhelming and things get lost. So please, if you haven't heard back from me about something, don't get mad at me. I mean, I ask for a little bit of grace, but also, like, rather than like secretly like grumbling, you know, shoot me a text message or give me a phone call or send me a follow-up email. I will never be upset if you email me, say, hey, I haven't heard about this. I will never be bothered by that. I will be grateful that you did that. Also, I like phone calls, unlike apparently some other people in my generation. So phone calls are good for me.
All right. How we feeling about boundaries? I'm gonna stick around for another hour and talk more about boundaries. That would exceed your boundaries. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, can you give me 4 minutes to wrap up this piece? Please feel free to leave if you need to. You'll give me 5. You are so generous. I get 5 minutes. Okay. Because also know that boundaries are something that we negotiate. And I don't mean like negotiate like anything Matthew said. You can go to him and say, I don't think you should. Can we meet halfway on this? But as things come up, boundaries are relational, right? So there may be something that we did not name today that was like, you didn't say that was a boundary. No, we're going to figure it out. And you all are empowered to have your boundaries as well and communicate your boundaries to Reverend Matthew. So if you're not a hugger, you can communicate that, right? So the way that boundaries work best is if it's part of our covenantal relationship to one another, having boundaries with each other, having boundaries with your minister having boundaries. And that's pretty central to that trust piece. Also central to a ministry as you go forward is some things that we've named in our earlier exercise regarding what do you expect from your minister? So I just want to name that. We're not going to go too much into that, but if you start to think about the things that you said that were, oh, that would be nice if, versus the things that are like, that's a rule. We need that from the minister, right? And I say that with a little more sass than I actually mean it to. But just paying attention to what are the things that you expect and how can you communicate that directly, right? Because one thing I've known, I was the primary contact for Reverend Matthew's last ministry as well. So I've been hanging with him as long as I've been hanging with you all, is that communicating things directly to him is really effective. And he's really good at receiving that. So you being able to say like, I really expected a phone call back. Do it, right? Communicate really directly. Okay, I don't want to end on the do's and don'ts, because what I also want you to be able to leave here with is a sense of you're going someplace together. So what I'm going to invite you to do in the 2 minutes I have of my 5 left is I want you to bring to mind a hope that you have for this next year of ministry together. What hope do you have? If you need a more directed prompt, you can think, if I gave you a time machine to 1 year from today, what do you want to be able to look back and say, yeah, that's what this was like. That's what we did. That's where we were going. What is a hope you have? Huh? Now, what I'm going to invite you to do is that we're going to do a little bit of some sports. Any sports fans? Okay, well, I'm only a Cubs fan, so that's a whole other story. Okay, doesn't matter if you're a sports fan or not, because we're going to play a little bit of ball. We're going to play ball together. Because what I'm going to ask you to do, and I'll explain it, and then I'll put the mic down and demonstrate it, is I'm going to ask you to make a ball with your hands, if that's physically comfortable for you to do. If not, just holding one hand up to your mouth is fine. And I'm going to give you 30 seconds. And online, you can do this the same thing too. You're just going to throw it at your camera. What I'm going to ask you to do is take 30 seconds. And just like you do with joys and sorrows, where you kind of speak them out, I'm going to ask you to speak your hopes for this next year together into your hand to create a ball of hopes. And then I'm going to give you the signal play ball. And when you hear that, folks online, you're going to toss your ball of hopes towards your camera. Everyone here, you're going to toss your ball of hopes towards the middle of the labyrinth. Okay? So it'll look a little bit something like this. All right. Take your 30 seconds or so. Speak your hopes or excitements, if that works better for you. Hopes or excitements into your hands. Create some balls of hope. Get your last hopes in there. That did not come out right. All right. I invite you as you're ready to prepare your ball. Everyone got a ball that wants to participate? Okay. Ready? Play ball. All right. Catching the ones from online, tossing them into the labyrinth as well. And now you know that this holy space is imbued with all your hopes for your ministry together in the next year. They're all rooted right here inside this labyrinth and living inside your hearts. Because I have high hopes for your ministry, and partly, this is going to make me sound grander than I am, partly I have high hopes because I know you're not alone. That I am a resource to you, that the wider UUA is a resource to you, and that the Unitarian Universalist community around here is a resource as well. Okay. I am going to invite those, I'm going to do, we're going to close out now. There was one other conversation we're going to have, but I think we need to close. So I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for being a part of this community, for all that you shared today, and all that you bring to this place. Your presence enough, being more than enough for this place. And I want to leave you with my blessing for the time ahead as you create ministry together. Because in this time, mercy, don't we need community? And don't we need people to live our values with, and people to find respite with? And what a place to do that than here. So let me share our closing words. Trust me, they're up there. I'm going to share the slides. That did not translate well. For those online, you can see it better when it's projected on the wall here. It's washed out. Doesn't help. So receive these words. May all beings be filled with joy and peace. May all beings everywhere, the strong and the weak, the great and the small, the mean and the powerful, the short and the long, the subtle and the gross. May all beings everywhere, seen and unseen, dwelling far off or nearby, being or waiting to become, may all be filled with lasting joy. May it be so.